Somebody was describing his encounter with God, with me. And after describing it, he said, the things were so weak. The vision, he was not sure about it, but this is what he saw. Then I told him, brother, an encounter with God is never clearer than what you saw. It is always something that if you come into your physics mind, you can doubt that nothing happened. If you subscribe to the chemistry you learned, that everything must be by molecules, by protons, by neutrons, and electrons. If you come into that mode, the encounter never existed. So when you have an encounter from that realm that is timeless, if you have the technology of trapping that encounter, and you build an altar around the encounter, what you have done is that moment in eternity, are you with me? That moment in eternity, from whence God secured a window to reach out to you, that moment can live in your life forever because you trapped it around an altar. So when God comes with dreams and comes with visions and encounters, he is not in the entertainment business. He's hoping, sincerely hoping that there is a wise man in the earth that will understand that this is the language of the immortals. They speak with pictures, they speak with signs and symbols. And if you trap an altar around it, you can make those weak runes of the spirit a critical part of your existence, and structures will be built around it, and it will live forever. If I check your life, I will see many revelations that you had, many encounters, many things that God has said to you, but you didn't raise any altar along the line of those encounters, to trap those encounters and to make it your own. Many of you have lost things. You have missed out of things. Most of what you see that is responsible for what becomes a great man in God was an encounter that an altar was raised around. In the first instance, when the things came, they were feeble, they were faint, they were weak things. But when the altars were built around them, many years later, they began to gain strength and capacity and shape and structure. But they came in the most feeble way in order to give muscle and structure to that which came just like a dream of the night. And to make it a concrete reality, you may need.
Welcome to Apostles on Fire TV. Here you'll be getting powerful video clips that will stir you up for a glorious work with God. Enjoy the video. Thank you.
There were many people that took off like a tornado. Are you with me? They went on a dry fast and they said they wanted to encounter God. At the end of the period of the fast, they ended up in the psychiatric hospital. It was obvious that they encountered something, but not God. Meanwhile, they raised an altar, and in their mind, it was unto the Lord. But what visited them took them to psychiatric hospital. And we had to go to pray for them, for their mind to come back, their soul to be secure. You may not know, but this man went into a deep research before he came up with the technology on how to raise an altar that Amadioha will not claim, that Ogugu will not claim. An altar that when he begins to sacrifice upon it, it is the Lord's frequency that he will contact. Noah, that was the result of the grace he found. This is the first time in the Bible that the Bible recorded that a man advanced an initiative of prayer and heaven responded. Prior to this time, people prayed, but were never told that heaven responded. The frustration of lack of answers to prayer was what invaded, what characterized the field of this new endeavor, the endeavor of prayer that humankind had stumbled upon. But in the days of Noah, because of the grace that he found, he was able to discover how to raise an altar unto God. And when he raised an altar unto God with all the attendant revelations that accompanied the kind of sacrifices that he made unto God, he was able to secure a feedback. Are you with me? But I want you to see the kind of feedback he secured. And Noah built an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Next verse. And the Lord smelled a sweet savour. And the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more every living thing as I have done. That's when the next verse now comes. As long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. He got a feedback from God. But you know, there was something about this feedback. The feedback was not in a proclamation that God made. The feedback was in an utterance that was made in the heart of God. It was a quiet feedback. That means that if you don't know how to enter into God's heart, you cannot get this feedback. The reason why it is in the Bible is because Noah was able to discover the technology of how to enter the heart archives, the archives of God's heart, and he was able to extract what was the worthy response of his initiative of prayer to the Almighty. Noah was an icon. He was the first of humankind to extract a response from God. If no man of sufficient stature rises in your family to extract an answer from the heart of God as concerning the destiny of that family, the patterns that are there will be sustained. It means that you have not yet found how to exert force in the spirit and how to move the hand of God. It was Noah that discovered the technology of how to erect an altar. And the discovery is Noah's, just like in science. All right? You might find several principles, several theories that are already propounded. And then when you come to the science class, they teach you the already existing principles and theories. And then they establish, sometimes they give mathematical ways of verifying the efficacy of the principles. And then when you are supposed to do your project, you use the principles you were taught in order to see how you can solve a problem in your own climb. An application of all the things that you have learned. All right, that's what we did in school. So Noah made this discovery, but it was in the life of Abraham that the principle of the altar was maximized. Now, so I want you to see that there's a progression. Oh my God, are you with me? There's a progression. The take-up point was that men began to call upon the name of the Lord. That never happened before. And when they began to call upon the name of the Lord, we were not told God answered. Until a man came, his name was what? Noah. And then among the people calling upon the name of the Lord, he found grace. When he found grace, the result of the grace he found was the technology of altars that he discovered. Is that clear? And then another researcher comes 2 chapters later. This researcher, his name is called Abraham. He takes advantage of existing principles that were propounded and discovered by previous researchers before his time. And what was obvious, the obvious and most recent discovery in the spirit was the technology and the discovery of altars. So the life of Abraham was a life of the tent and the altar. Everywhere he went, he raised an altar. Before you know it, in the entire scope of the Middle East, Golan Heights, everywhere in the Middle East, the man had littered the place with altar. But stay with me. He maximized the principle that the last researcher had discovered. My question to us today is, what have you found in the spirit? So that when your son runs to you at the age of 12, the age of 18, say, in the days of my navigation, this, I found that. On the strength of this and that, do not do this. So that your children can become the seed of the wise. I made up my mind a long time ago that I would not live a mundane life. Get a job in Zenith Bank and look for a pair of suits. And you appear there on Monday. You fill vouchers, regulate and collate cash inflow. You balance the amount in your computer before you close and go back home. And tomorrow you are now with a blue suit on the same desk. If that's the meaning of your life, it means you know your job and you don't know your work. I will not be like Methuselah. He lived and died, and his only achievement was that he produced sons and daughters without heritage, without any spiritual thing to bequeath to them. Should I tell you that time in itself cannot bring deliverance? Wise men have changed time. They have manipulated time. And they have established things that will speak as long as the earth remains. If I check your life, I will see many revelations that you had, many encounters, many things that God has said to you, but you didn't raise any altar along the line of those encounters, to trap those encounters and to make it your own. Many of you have lost things. You have missed out of things. Most of what you see that is responsible for what becomes a great man in God was an encounter that an altar was raised around. In the first instance, when the things came, they were feeble, they were faint, they were weak things. But when the altars were built around them, many years later, they began to gain strength and capacity and shape and structure. But they came in the most feeble way in order to give muscle and structure to that which came just like a dream of the night. And to make it a concrete reality, you may need to build an altar. It was at the age of 13 that I knew that I was going to preach the gospel. But even in the encounters I had, I asked a question. I asked angels this question, because I was a grievous stammerer. And I said, why will God want a stammerer to preach for him? How much can I do to the enterprise of the gospel without the ability to communicate effectively? Those were my words when I was 13 years old. And in the realm where I was asking this human question, they could not understand why I was so ignorant in that realm. In fact, one of the angels, I found out experientially that angels are very difficult to appease. Because of the question I asked, the scroll the angel was reading, which I have now understood that it was the outline of my destiny. If I was a little bit more patient, maybe I would have gotten the entire thing he was trying to read. But I punctuated him with my question. And the scroll from whence he read, he rolled it and struck my tongue. That was how the encounter stopped. I found myself in the room again. You know what? I built an altar around that encounter. So that moment, are you with me? I hope you know eternity doesn't have time. Eternity is timeless. It's the realm of a perpetual continuum. It's the realm of an eternal now. So when you have an encounter from that realm that is timeless, if you have the technology of trapping that encounter and you build an altar around the encounter, what you have done is that moment in eternity, are you with me? That moment in eternity from whence God secured a window to reach out to you, that moment can live in your life forever because you trapped it around an altar. So when God comes with dreams and comes with visions and encounters, he is not in the entertainment business. He's hoping, sincerely hoping that there is a wise man in the earth that will understand that this is the language of the immortals. They speak with pictures, they speak with signs and symbols, and if you trap an altar around it, you can make those weak rooms of the spirit a critical part of your existence, and structures will be built around it, and it will live forever. Somebody was describing his encounter with God with me, and after describing it, he said the things were so weak, the vision, he was not sure about it, but this is what he saw. Then I told him, brother, an encounter with God is never clearer than what you saw. It is always something that if you come into your physics mind, you can doubt that nothing happened. If you subscribe to the chemistry you learned, that everything must be by molecules, by protons, by neutrons and electrons. If you come into that mode, the encounter never existed. But wise men that understand the language of the spirit, what they do is that they build an altar. When I discovered at the age of 13 that I was going to preach the gospel, then my challenge was, how will I talk? And it means the encounter didn't die. It left an impression. May the Lord, may his weak ways of wooing humankind, may it become strong enough for you to build an altar unto the God that appeared unto you. The identity of the personality in the spirit that met him was not really known, but yet as weak as the encounter was, what did he do? He built an altar. It will never be clear by encounter, it will be clear by altar. And that's why in the life of Abraham, altars were permanent and tents were temporary, because the Bible says he pitched his tent and then he did what? He built an altar. His living was living by altars. That's what life was for Abraham. You got a posting from Lagos, from Makurdi to Lagos, and then you never knew that if you arrive a new territory, the first thing you do is to pitch your tent. Look, pay rent, pay house rent, pitch your tent, and then when you have pitched your tent, you build an altar. Tents were temporary, altars were permanent. And when Abraham moves from a place to another place, he takes his tent along, but you know he can't take the altar. That altar becomes a foundation. If I had time, I would have shown you the navigation of Abraham, and that all through the land of Canaan are littered with altars. Today, are you with me? In the Middle East, there may be somebody burying Malik, thinking he wants to fight against God. One might be burying Abdul Salam, but he doesn't know that our ancestor Abraham, before his ancestors were born, there was a navigator that littered altars all through the territory. Oh my! They can only rebel because God gave them permission. God has he has sufficient evidence in those territories for him to invade. And indeed, in our lifetime, he will invade. Something will be struck at the very heart of Islam. A revival will strike in our lifetime. Not because we pray too much, but because their territory is littered with the efforts of our ancestors. And my prayer tonight is that the labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. When you find men like Idahosa, what they did, their real ministry was not the churches they established. You will never know them until you trace their altars. I went to Ekiti State. The moment we drove from Ondo State into Ekiti State, I saw people on the mountains. And then when I asked them, what are these people doing here? They say, most of the labors of the great prophet, Ayo, Babalola, were done on mountains. Whereas men dwell in the valleys. A strange mortal had appeared that had superior understanding. He spent most of his life where? On high ground. I don't have time to talk this evening. The burden is too much. You think the churches that came out of their initiatives was what they did? No. The measure of a man's life are the altars littered that tell the story of his journey. Because your life in the spirit is a story that God is telling from heaven. Because when you move from Makurdi to Lagos, you are going to encounter principalities that are different from the types that operate here. I remember I went to Delta State and I was casting out a spirit from one lady, and the demon began to speak from her. Say, we don't know you here. Where are you from? Because yes. You say, in my own hallelujah. In my own estimation, what she was saying was that we know the level of all the people here. You are not from here. We don't know you here. You will be ignorant to think that what you did in Makurdi will follow you to Delta. I went to preach in Benin, and when it was in a stadium. I was in a stadium, and I cried to God, and people began to manifest. That is, the manifestation was as if somebody put fire on lighter. The whole stadium, boom. Then we finished. In fact, the thing was so strong that security people had to take me away from the crusade. Then the VC of University of Benin gave me an accommodation. So in the night, I came out of my room, and demons, that is, demons were everywhere. In fact, let me tell you the truth, I was afraid. Just in case you would think that I went back. And what I saw, that all the demons we cast out were waiting for me outside. Don't think that what you did in Makurdi will follow you to Benin. No, in Benin you need to pitch your tent, and then you need to build an altar. And you know that an altar is not an altar if there's no sacrifice. And what we bring on the sacrifice, what we bring on the altar that makes it potent is your life, your will that is being surrendered. Everything is your will. You would have had you have ideas to do things the way you want to do it, but because you are in a relationship with God that has begun with consecration, it means you don't have the right anymore to subscribe to life according to the which of your will, but according to that which is of God. It is that sacrifice of allowing God's will to override yours. That's what the immortals value. Because you cannot say you are trafficking, doing business with the realm of immortality. They don't need a car, they don't need money. But sacrifice moves them. And in your walk with God, don't think you will go far if you are not willing to sacrifice. Prayer will eat your time up. And by the time you finish, you started prayer by 12 years and you move it, you continue till 17 years, 22 years, you will find out that you miss something. You miss clubbing, you miss partying, you miss everything. All those things that were happening around the curves were not part of your life. Because you have sacrificed all that to allow the will of God to find expression. You need the age to master God. You need time to master God. You know, the other day I said that you may not master the ways of God any less than 10 years. And I said that in the authority of great men that started before us. All right? I found that in Watchman's book. That's the first time I found that 10-year principle. Idahosa told us that if a man is fake, leave him. In 10 years' time, you will know. Idahosa told us that directly. All right? And then now it is popular. So I preached it here and I said, you will need a consistent walk with God for about 10 years. For you to say, I know God, and it to be true. So when I said that, they wrote it on Facebook, PowerPoint. And then a young believer that doesn't know how many altars I've raised in my navigation now commented. I said, somebody posted that thing, all right? So the person now said, go and tell your pastor that he has not been reading his Bible. You got married to your wife, it will take you your lifetime to know your wife. The one that you sleep with, wake up with, you talk, you gist, you travel with, it will take a dimension will appear one day. A dimension. When that dimension appears, don't be angry. Just buckle your seat belts and then enter another school. A friend of mine called me. He's a pastor. He's married for 18 years. He called me and said, he's single. Yes, he said he's single. He has been single. See, it's only me that says he's married. He knows it's what. When you hear men talk like that, there's a dimension. A human being living with you, dimensions appear, and then you need to begin to learn again. You increase the capacity of your heart to accommodate. Then you want to master a spirit. Just because you came for a crusade and you say, Jesus, have mercy on me, then you just. You know, when people that have not had experience with God begin to teach the Bible, what they are teaching is a lie. Don't hear the gospel from a man that has no scars. Paul says, henceforth, let no man trouble me, because I bear. Why? He spoke. The authority from whence he spoke was from his scars. I bear in my body. I bear what? The marks of Christ. In my navigation, I had marks. And it's the authority that I have to insist that demons cannot trouble me. That an Israel cannot come and manipulate my destiny, because I have marks. And these marks are not my marks. They are marks I acquired in my adventure as an altar master. Yes. Oh, they didn't tell you. Please help me tell your neighbor. In this journey, you will inherit marks. Please help me tell you. I know they told you. I know they told you it's no longer you that lives. It's Christ. And that you are a new creation. All things have passed away. And behold, all things have become new. Oh, you are a new species. You are a Superman. Before the glory of God dwells in your tabernacle. That's a lecturer talking. When you begin to build altars, then you will talk the one I'm saying. Tell your neighbor, you will get marks in the process. You know, salvation met your need. Is that true? But it didn't meet God's need. Have you thought about that? So God's plan cannot be salvation. Because you can give your life to Christ and decide to be an unreasonable Christian. It is only reasonable Christians that decide to go the way of consecration. Because in consecration, your will is sold out. You are no longer living your way. You are living his way. Then you become a prophet to the kingdom of God. It is when you submit to become a functionary in God's kingdom that God profits from your life. Meanwhile, in salvation, you profited from God. Several people are saved today, but they have not allowed God to be the one that calls the shots in their life. Your life, you are a consumer, part of the consumer generation. And I vowed that my efforts in ministry will not be spent at raising consumers. Yes, because in the fullness of time, I will have no reward for that. Oh my God. Because if you are going to preach kingdom, you yourself must be an example of a man that is following God in the wilderness. You cannot be fake and preach the kingdom. Because every bit of it requires that you die to your will, you die to your ways, you die to your wisdom. And in the New Testament is deeper. All of us will have to bear your cross, just like Jesus bore his. And you know, when you are carrying a cross, it means you are under death sentence. Eh? Is that true? And then as they say, okay, you are sentenced to death. They are moving you to where they will do firing squad. Then somebody now say, hey, there is a house that is here in Wadata. Will you buy? Will you buy? You see, you can't desire what the world is offering. If it did, you are carrying what? Cross. Oh, you are not with me. Oh, the attraction of this age will not be reasonable to a man that is what? Or as you are navigating, there's a death sentence. And you're carrying your cross. Then a woman comes naked. You can't look at it. Have you ever visited a labor room when a woman is about to, and then you bring lace and say, I brought lace? I brought China lace. This is China. The type you will be talking about. I just got it now. Go deeper. When you go deeper, you won't need. Some of you are locked on Chelsea, Man U, and it's a God to you. You don't know it is stealing your man hours. Your man hours that you would have spent around the altar. He's stealing it. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not a sin. It's not in the Bible. When you begin to carry this cross in navigation, Man U will die. You don't need a preacher. No, you don't need a preacher. Yes. When the protocol of death begins to find expression in your life so that you can really be a sanctuary, a new creation, you won't need a preacher to preach to you. Those are the days when you hear a voice behind you say, this is the way, walk in it. This is the way. And in those days, every man will have knowledge and understanding of their God. We're a pool of consumers. We as a body, as a fellowship body, the Pentecostal body, we have no fire corporately. What we are telling people is a lie. Because the proof of our ministry is the people we have raised. And you cannot raise a follower of the cross if you don't carry one. I don't have time. Are you there? Abraham backslided. Decided to take the easy path so that he will escape process, and he went down to Egypt. It was not God that led him. In Egypt, he was in backsliding mode. Hallelujah. Went to look for greener pasture. That was where the principality looked upon his wife. May you not give Satan occasion. The wife, we never heard about Sarah again since that time when her name was taken in the roll call of the journey, until Abraham veered off into the land of Egypt. And then Sarah became a factor. If you are not in the will of God, your own may not be Sarah. Even your shirt can be the reason for the trouble. But there must be trouble. He veered off. He wanted to live large. I have been navigating in the backsides for too long. I heard there is water bed. There's a beach side that I can go and spread myself under the sun and say hallelujah. Ebenezer. When he went there, he didn't know he was locking into the territory of a principality. He was about to meet another fellow who was not subject to God, and a kingdom was built by his wisdom. He almost lost it. And when he came out of Egypt, and he came out because God rescued him, God led him back to the place of the altar which he had made at the first. It is his consecration that God pointed him to when he came back from his backsliding experience. Do you realize anywhere you veer off from, if you veer off any class in the spirit, you veer off from, and you don't understand the journey that God has called us to walk in, if you come back, that's the class that will admit you. The teachers in those classes are patient. They are patient to readmit absconded students. Do you see why I say you need time with God? It takes age for you to master the way of grace. You'll be admitted back to the class that you were attending, that you now took off like a tornado. They will keep your seat and your name will be on it. Maybe you come back at age 70. They will say, well done. We'll be waiting. Yes, you are still in primary 2. And unfortunately, it's only mortals that need time. Angels don't. God does not. Will you stop all the distraction and forget about pursuing all those people that promise to help you and build your altar? Yes, it was in the place of prayer on the 20th of October 2002 in the city of Kano. I will never forget. 2002, 20th of October, because I picked it was 12 midnight, and I had an encounter that lasted for 3 hours. It was in that encounter I saw a prophetic screen for the first time in my life, a screen that was playing images of the future, and in that screen I saw Makodi. The reason why I'm here today was because I saw Makodi in 2002 in that screen. It was when I had that encounter I was seeing that screen and I was asking questions and all of that. It lasted from 12 midnight to 3 a.m. It was in that encounter that God spoke to me about my wife. You know, it's more than 10 years now, so I can testify. I have been helped. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm a very stubborn man, very exceptionally stubborn man. Hallelujah. There are many adjustments I made in my life because of her simplicity. The rugged dimension. I have been helped. When you go in search of a damsel, you know, these days sisters change when they change hairstyle. I saw a sister last month. When I saw her, I said, "What's your name?" She said, "Oh, I didn't know it was the hair now became like that." May the Lord open your eyes. God did not call you to marry Miss Delta. Miss Delta State. It was at the altar that was raised that God showed me the future, and He also showed me damsel. May you wake up, go and look for stones and begin to erect your altar. Stop chasing men. Stay there long enough. Illumination will come from it. If not, you will run the rat race all through your life. It was here, this bridge across River Benue. That was when I came to school. I ran to my uncle. I said, we have resumed. Then my uncle gave me 400 naira. I used 300 naira to go to Abuja. He gave me what? So I was better off before I traveled. If I had kept the 400 naira, it would have been in my pocket. But because I made a trip to Abuja, and then I made 300 back, how much do I have now? I was on the bridge when I vowed that till I graduate, I won't cross that bridge in search of anybody again. And I went to campus and I built my altar. I know what? I didn't cross that bridge. My father had died. These were the people that said, oh, they were going to train us. And my father trained them. My father married my mother when he was already old, because he used his life to train those people. My dad was like 15 years older than my mom. In my dad's old age, my mom was still very beautiful. All of them turned their backs. May people turn their back on you so that you can build the altar.
Thank you for watching. Do well to subscribe, like, share the video to your loved ones so they can receive what God is doing from this platform. You can also follow us on all our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, and we are on Twitter. Thank you.